Hello everyone, that Manga Kid here to do a review of Junji Ito's manga version of No Longer Human. The original novel is by Osamu Dazai. I have read and I own a translated version of the original novel, and I have also read Usamaru Furia's 3-volume manga series version as well. I don't own it, unfortunately, but I read it through an interlibrary loan, and then I watched the anime version, which is only a few episodes adapted um, of the story, and that was good as well. I will say Junji Ito's version is the most different of all of the different versions that I have consumed this story in, because if you've read anything by Junji Ito, you know that he is very good at drawing and portraying specific disgusting scenes and feelings in a way that like really visualizes how gross the situation is. And for a story like No Longer Human, it is very interesting to see it done that way. You follow our main character who you start as he's a child or a young man, and no, he's definitely he's a child at the beginning, and he is from a very wealthy family, but he doesn't feel loved. He realizes at a young age that it's better for him to just smile all the time and be the prankster and the jokester in class and at home, and people will just laugh and think that he's great and whatever, and he doesn't have to actually elicit any actual emotions or deal with anything. He can just smile and joke around, and people will just, take that to be his legitimate personality. And he becomes the Joker, and that's who he has personified himself as, in order to just kind of get through life and any kind of relationships. And so he is going through some pretty disgusting things as a child. People are abusing him, and he just kind of takes it and just continues to put on that facade of the jokester who doesn't care about anything. And as he gets older, he just becomes more and more twisted and dark and doesn't really know how to behave and function like a human, hence No Longer Human. He doesn't view himself as a person. He views himself as this weird act, like he's put on some kind of mask and that he's just trying to get through life. This is the young man quite often, attempts suicide in various different ways, and people around him are dying due to his actions, his decisions, and because he's from a wealthy family, he kind of gets away with a lot of the mistakes that he makes that are quite detrimental to other people. He has issues with drugs, he has issues with politics, and getting involved with political parties that are not legal in Japan at the time. And yeah, it's a story of his kind of lust and his various relationships with women that all end pretty terribly. And yeah, it's not by any means a happy story. It's quite gruesome, and the reason why I think that Junji Ito's version is done so well is that, like I said, it really, really, the way that Junji Ito does facial expressions in his horror scenes, and the way that he does like just the way that he draws the world really shows you in those really fucked up moments of things that happen to this character and things that this character does. Junji Ito draws it in a way that as a reader, you know that this is so messed up and should not be happening. Whereas, Usamaru Furia's version was very much, I'm drawing the story as it is, and these are things that are real. None of this stuff is fantasy. Like, all this stuff can and does happen to people. And so, Usumara Furuya portrayed it in a very real way. The actual novel portrays it obviously in a very real way, and Junji Ito takes some liberties with it and portrays it in his manga style, which is so fascinating to me. And I enjoyed it quite a lot more than I was expecting to, even though I love Junji Ito. But I really loved Usumara Furuya's version. I was quite, hesitant to read this one. But this is so different from that you can read both, and it's such a different experience from between the two of them. And yeah, I highly recommend it if you are comfortable and okay with reading very heavy subjects. If you are not, stay clear of this one because you're just going to end up being miserable. This is a story that I really enjoy, and so I picked this up, obviously. But if you are not, it's not like Junji Ito's other stuff because he didn't write the story for this. This isn't a horror story. This is a story about a man struggling. And it happens to be done in Junji Ito's horror style, which adds a whole other layer to this story. But I would say, yeah, if you're not okay with things like rape and death, suicide, drug abuse, that kind of stuff, don't pick this up because this is so blatantly done. And I think too, I was surprised at how Junji Ito portrayed a lot of those scenes because I think it was glossed over in the other adaptions that I had consumed. Besides the actual novel, but even then it didn't go into so much detail, but there's something very particular about seeing it drawn out on a page of people being violated in that way that is so terrifying, really, honestly. I will show you some art. Obviously, I gotta be careful. There's a lot of explicit scenes. And I also don't want to really spoil a lot of stuff either, but it's a very like just this is kind of gross, but this kid in his class who he discusses the ear infection and grossness, and then like just Junji Ito's way of drawing things, it just elicits that reaction of like, ugh, God, he really is gross. And the way that faces are drawn, of like how tired she looks and how exhausted she is, and how beautiful our main character is, because he is described as this gorgeous character. Yozo, that's his name. I could not remember his name for the life of me. Yozo, the main character, is described as this beautiful man that women are just throwing themselves at, even though he's so miserable and kind of awful. Junji Ito draws him in a way that, like, wow, he is legitimately gorgeous. He's a gorgeous man. And this was the first time I had seen him and actually thought, like, yes, he is a gorgeous man. Because Usumara Furuya's version, he was okay looking. The anime version, he was okay looking. But Junji Ito drew him in such a crisp way that I was like, yes, no, he's gorgeous. He is somebody that you would look at and be like, wow, I'm, interested in that guy, even though I know nothing about him. This is just a really pretty spread. Yeah, the art is wonderful. And I think if you enjoy this story or have consumed it in a different version, I highly recommend this version. It's so different from all of the others. And Junji Ito also takes some liberties closer to the end of the manga here that stray from the original story. So that was kind of fascinating as well. I didn't love it particularly, but I I acknowledged that he was taking liberties and wanted to make it kind of his own. Um, so that's fine. But yeah, it's a really good story, and if you can handle it, content wise, I highly, highly recommend picking it up. And I hope one day I can get my hands on Usamaru Furuya's version because I really enjoyed that as well. But yeah, and this is a nice other hardcover release by Viz with a slipcover that comes off to reveal a really cool picture underneath the slipcover. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend reading it. If you've read any of the versions of No Longer Human, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because it's something I really, really enjoy. Um, and yeah, thanks for watching. See ya.